Heck? Well, as soon as I go to start this video, I find out that I apparently have no internet connection to my laptop. Okay. Alright, so we're just gonna unplug it. Alright, so I've basically got to kill the battery on my thing. It's doing that weird fuck up. Anyways, so this video is, why flanks are strong and why they are weak. And I find this an interesting subject because a lot of times in game, the flank is one of the deciding factors. For example, if you play ranked games, at a lot of high-level ranked games, you are not going to see flanks picked very often. Outside of if the enemy team is stupid enough to leave a high-priority flank open. But in lower tier games, you're going to see all sorts of characters picked. And it's really kind of a sad thing. So let's talk about why flanks are so strong. And so, first off, it is mostly flanks are stronger on console. So, for example, Moji. Where's he at? Where's the other one at? I'm looking for the other one. Oh. Koga and Talus are probably three of the biggest ones that are just devastating on console, but maybe so-so on PC. Now, Talus and Koga are both strong on PC. I know Moji's basically dead on PC. But on console, they're very strong. Now, in a similar boat, on PC, Eevee and Maeve are a lot stronger on PC than they are on console. Partially due to the fact that it's easier to aim with them on PC than it is on console. Looking at what flanks are kind of balanced in the middle, Xin and Roxas are pretty much the two flanks. They're both strong. They can be good, they can be bad, depending on PC or console. I want to get that note out of the way about PC and console. Everybody else is about meh. They have a different reasoning. With Buck and Lex, they're considered underpowered. Sky is just a tank buster. When you look at how flanks are played, it's not a North America versus EU thing. A lot of people would think that. It is actually a level of play. For example, if you talk to a lot of GMs and masters and grandmasters and all those people, those high-level people, they're going to tell you that flanks are garbage outside of a few picks. And pretty much everyone is stereotyped. So Xin is pretty much... Most high-level people will tell you that Xin is only good right now for guillotine, ult spam, and occasionally Yomi for poke damage. Talus is a good overall DPS character. He's just good at bursting, at quick burst down targets, and once he gets caught, he's dead. Lex is just garbage because he's focused on isolating individual targets. Maeve is a very hard one to gauge. Most people say Maeve is either good or bad. I'm personally in the opinion that she's bad. A lot of people say she's good. You've got Moji, who almost everyone agrees is shit, well, except for me, and those of us that actually play Moji. Sky is relegated to strictly debilitate tank buster. Koga is just spam. Whether it's SMG spam, whether it's claw spam, whether it's ult spam, it doesn't matter. He's just spam. Eevee is a high mobility one. She requires a large degree of skill to play her, so you're either good or bad. Andro is one of the best, most well-rounded flanks. He has good close range damage, he has good mid-range damage, he has good evasion, he has good defense, and he has a decent amount of self-sustain. And Buck rounds out the cast with, again, Buck is a very diversive one. The higher tier you go, the shittier people think Buck is. But he is still an effective flank, even at the higher tiers. Now, why is it that flanks are so strong and weak at the same time? A flank can make or break a game. Well, part of it comes to your skill level. Eevee, for example, is a character that requires tremendous amount of accuracy with her weapon to be effective. That being said, Eevee is a character that can be made or break by your ability to use your escape abilities, your aim, your item management, your loadout management. She's a very skill-dependent character. Eevee is not really one of those characters that's affected by the enemy team. Versus a champion like Buck. Buck can entirely get affected by the enemy team. He's a champion that in the right hands can do great, but even in the best of hands, he still is outmatched. Eventually, when the enemy team gets enough cauterized and they cut out his self-sustain, eventually they'll get Haven or Resilience and they'll cut out the net and they'll cut out the damage. That makes Buck very much counterable as a champion. And while one could say that about Eevee, that, oh, they just have to cripple her or something like that, and she's useless, that's not entirely true. The same goes for Andro. Andro is another champion that isn't really countered by the enemy team. He's countered by your skill with him. And that really is what it comes down to with flank champions. And the funny part is, looking at each champion, how strong they really are, to be frank, this is how I would tier them up. Koga is the undisputed #1 because he's fucking Spam of the Month Club. He's also the most broken character in the game. So fuck Koga. That being said, Koga is in his own special little S tier. The A tier is going to consist of 2 champions only. We're going to have Xin, because Xin has a great deal of flexibility. Now, I believe that Smolder is his best talent because it gives him an ability to sustain himself incredibly well as having Guillotine for anti-tank, Yomi for general damage, and just the fact that he can play so defensive. Androxus is also in the A tier as well, because Androxus has a sheer amount of survivability. He has a lot of reset potential, and he has incredibly effective damage. He has a punch and a pistol, so he does have good close to mid-range. Now, the next 2 champions are going to be in the B tier. Well, why are they in B tier? That doesn't mean they're bad, it's just how I'm doing this list. Eevee, if you have the aim for her, and Skye. Skye is very easy to counter with both Haven and Illuminate, but she excels at being able to burst individual targets down very quickly, and Eevee for her high maneuverability. Now, in the B tier as well is Talus. I have Talus in the B tier simply for the fact that I don't think he's as strong as people make him out to be. Don't get me wrong, he is a relentless, overwhelming piece of shit at times, but it's only if you don't know how to hit him first. Pretty much any character can get the first hit on him and really force him to retreat. The C tier of characters is going to include Buck, Moji, and Lex. Lex is in the B tier because Lex, quite frankly, doesn't have the survivability. Even on, if you're running Heroism, you're lacking the damage, and you need that extra damage with him. So if you run a damage one, like Death Hastens or Discovery, now you don't have that survivability. You're really forced to choose with him, and his lack of mobility also doesn't help. He only has Combat Slide. Moji, as much as I love her, is in the B tier because realistically, most people don't understand how she works. So because everyone else's general lack of knowledge, Moji has to go in the B tier. Not everyone can be a Moji main like me. And then Buck in the B tier as well, because even though he is one of the strongest flank champions, it's entirely dependent upon the enemy team not buying 2 items. And last, in the C tier is going to be, in the D tier, sorry, is going to be Maeve. Maeve is here because Maeve, in my opinion, is shit. Maeve is pretty much the worst flank in the game to play. I'd rather play Eevee than Maeve. That's kind of sad. That being said, I still haven't justified what makes a flank so strong. Well, flanks are very good at being able to identify and isolate individual targets. They're also very good as secondary damage dealers. For example, Moji plays multiple roles. Moji can be a tank destroyer or a straight up and up flank, if you can get around her lack of mobility. Androxus is very good at isolating backline targets, but gets hit pretty hard by flanks and by tanks, especially if they decide to flank him, or snipers. Snipers are another thing that Androxus can struggle with. Basically, if the sniper gets the first shot, you're pretty much toast. This is the problem that with flank champions, though. Flank champions are mostly countered by tanks and snipers. And snipers are one of the targets they're supposed to go and get. Now, a champion like Skye doesn't really have that. Skye is a tank melter. What Skye's problem is consistent sustained DPS. If she goes up against a character that's able to sustain DPS on her, like a Victor or a Vivian, she is toast. Also, another problem with flanks is how prominent damage healers are right now in the meta. Flanks suffered a great deal when a lot of the inbuilt cauterize got taken out. For example, Talus losing his Antediluvian on Overcharge is a pretty big nerf to him. Another character that got nerfed kind of hard was Skye with the cauterize on Poison Bolt, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because she got infinite ammo. Buck, surprisingly, you would expect with inbuilt caught going away that he would move up. In my opinion, he's actually gone down. More people buy cauterize to begin with. Inbuilt cauterize was a good thing because it enabled you to have a large amount of success early in the game with certain abilities, so you didn't necessarily buy cauterize. Now, an example of this would be Cassie. Cassie used to have the blast shot card where you had cauterize on that. So you would mostly use your blast shot to deal cauterize, and you could buy wrecker or reload speed for her primary fire. This isn't the case anymore. Now you need to buy cauterize. And that's an example of how cauterize really changed the game. You know you're going to need cauterize because they have a healer, a con, and a buck on the enemy team. So you're going to have to buy cauterize. Whereas before you might say, well, I don't necessarily need cauterize because I have, say, cauterize on my loadout. Now you don't have that anymore. That really hurt a lot of flanks potential as well. Talus, Moji, Skye, Koga, Andro all lost inbuilt caught cards. Buck and Eevee didn't, but Buck and Eevee now suffer a little bit more because of it. Same with Lex. Lex is pretty much in the same state he's always been. But at the end of the day, one of the things I think makes a flank champion strong is flank champions are able to deal large amounts of damage if you can overcome their playstyle. And their playstyle is more rewarding the more experienced you are on other characters. To be honest, other than support, flank is the second highest difficulty category there is. Knowing when to push, knowing when not to push. I apologize this video was delayed. I had to, I had a bunch of problems going on with our tournament team that I had to sort out, so I'm hoping to have a bunch of videos upcoming, and there should be a surprise on my next video. Thanks for watching.